This is a UK Thrashers radio show, the home of Moshing the Roof On. In episode 4 we catch up with Bristol Detritus and play a ton of music. Let's kick things off with Detritus from their 1990 album Perpetual Defiance. This is No Mercy. Next up is a band that have posted some extremely optimistic tour dates, but let's hope they go ahead at some point in the near future anyway. This is our friends from Liverpool. This is Reaper and Flight. Okay, for those of you who haven't already pre-ordered, please head over to ukthrashers.bandcamp.com and pick up a pre-order of Mosh in the Roof on Volume 2. There'll be 30 tracks across 2 CDs, that's 2 hours and 20 odd minutes of UK thrash metal, and it all goes towards helping shelter, combat the homelessness problem in the UK. So please support us and head over there and get your pre-orders in. Okay, next up is a band that joined us on last year's Mosh in the Roof on. This is Tempered and Monotonous. Next up is this week's interview with Detritus. Those of you with keen ears may spot our new interviewer. Welcome Jon Hoare to the show, who'll be doing lots more interviews in the coming months.
This week we caught up with Bristol Progressive Thrashers Detritus, who are back with a new album, Myths, which is due for release on February the 19th. The band's first round of success was in the late 80s and early 90s, and we talked about everything from how they wrote and recorded the new album during a pandemic, to buying guitars on eBay, and the wisdom of leaving your singer in the studio to add the bits he wants when you're not around. First off, welcome Detritus to the UK Thrashers podcast. For those listeners that don't know you, could you just introduce yourselves, give us your names and tell us what you do in the band, that kind of thing?
I'll go first. I'm Andy Bright, drummer.
I'm Paul Newington-Wise. I play guitar, mainly rhythm.
I'm Andy Neal. I'm one of the other guitar players.
I'm Mark Broomhead. I play bass guitar and sing.
I am Michael Bryzak. I play the third guitar and turn it up to 11.
Yeah, I was going to say, looking at your lineup, you've got 3 guitarists, which is very Iron Maiden of you. So, yeah, I mean, would one of you like just to give us a brief history of the band and tell us why it's taken you 30 years to come back, what you've been doing in the meantime, that kind of thing? Who wants to take that?
Go on, Mark, go for it.
Yeah, go on, Mark. You were the one that got us all back together, really.
Yeah.
Oh, brief history of the band. Don't know how brief I can be. Well, we got together when we were at school and were kind of playing thrash metal back in the late 80s and put out a couple of albums, Perpetual Defiance and If But For One, which was loads of fun. But then it was at that time when Nirvana burst on the scene, and there were things. I think when our first album came out, we had like a review and stuff in there, and on the cover it said "Thrash is Dead" or something like that. So it was kind of not the best time to be launching a new thrash project onto the market. But yeah, we enjoyed it. We had some good fun, did some good gigs and a few tours, a couple of festivals and stuff. But then kind of sensible life got in the way, and we kind of parted ways for a bit. And then there was a guy from a festival in Holland, and he kept going on at me saying, "Can you get Detritus back together again?" And I'm like, well, I literally haven't spoken to someone in 25 years, so it's not that likely. And at the same time, well, we kind of started chatting a bit because an American label wanted to re-release our first 2 albums. So we kind of started chin-wagging about that and got that ball rolling. And then I said, well, this festival wants us to play. Should we do it? So everyone kind of didn't say yes, but I just kept going on, and we decided to. Yeah. And initially it was me and the 2 Andys got together. We hadn't seen each other for ages and ages. And we just went into a practice studio and just started trying to play some of the songs, and kind of worked, and thought, yeah, push on with this.
So was it tempting just to play the old stuff, or you had in mind that perhaps you might want to do some new material?
I think that, from my point of view, when Mark first got in touch, I think that was almost one of the first things we talked about was, if we're going to get back together again, I don't think any of us wanted to be almost like a covers band of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think there was the initial, right, let's get back together again and see if we can remember how to play it. So I think the 3 of us just picked like a couple of songs each and almost kind of went to the studio almost to convince ourselves this was a really bad idea, and kind of got there and played. And A, we could remember it. B, actually, to our ears, it didn't sound anything like as bad as we were expecting it to sound. And then it sort of actually, that was really good fun. Maybe we should do some more of it. But the conversation very quickly went on to, if we're going to invest time, because obviously logistically, back in the day, we were all in and around Bristol, and it was pretty easy to get together. We're now like 600 miles apart, and it's, day jobs and commitments and stuff that makes that a little bit trickier. But I think that the underlying sort of sentiment was that actually we want to try and do new stuff, because we've all moved on musically. Some of us have not played much, some of us have played quite a lot, but it's, we're all in very different places on a lot of other levels. And I think that's what became interesting. Wouldn't it be great to see what we did now compared to what we would have done back then? So I think that certainly for me, but I think for the rest of the guys, there was always that sense of, okay, let's do a bit of the old stuff just to get some momentum again, but let's see what happens beyond that. And obviously then, the process of moving on from there, Mark had a whole stack of sort of demos and things that he'd kept a record of over the last decade or so, and threw them at us, and then we picked them apart and so on. And that's sort of how we've got to where we are now.
Okay. Obviously, 30 years ago is a different time completely. How have you found it different than it was 30 years ago? Both sort of within yourselves and within the whole industry.
Well, for me, I haven't played guitar since I left the band back in, when did I leave? 1990?
Probably, yeah.
And I ended up having to buy myself a new guitar off of eBay. I think I paid 80 quid for it, turned up in the post a week later. It's been very strange, because
It's a great excuse to buy new gear again, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I've been looking at my guitar over the past couple of weeks and thinking, yeah, time for a new one now.
Yeah, it'd be rude not to.
But
obviously, the whole landscape's changed. The internet, and Bandcamp, and Spotify and stuff. It's a different world, isn't it?
I think we're just starting to discover that now, aren't we? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was relying on Mark a lot, really, because in terms of Mark's been the one who's sort of carried on playing in the sort of metal scene and playing in other bands, and that I mean, I again, same as Paul. I mean, I never stopped playing the drums, but I haven't played any thrash metal since Detritus went their own way, and and that was a thing. That was definitely a thing for me as well. Like Andy said, can I still do this stuff? I mean, like I say, not out of practice, but definitely out of practice with sort of any sort of speed on the drum. So a bit older, a bit retired, and trying to do that stuff. But actually, it worked out. And it was just great hooking up with these guys again. I got to say, it didn't feel strange at all after 5 minutes. And I think, like Andy said, it was pretty clear that we were enjoying it. I wanted to do some more.
Yeah,
I think the technology that's about nowadays made it so much easier for us to relearn the old stuff and to write new stuff and to record new stuff. In fact, because how long did we spend in the studio? Was it less than a week?
No, I think it was about 10 days or 12.
Oh, it was 10 days, was it, in the end? Okay, it flew by, but yeah, we did a lot of our recording, didn't we, before we even went in? So
yeah, so the reality of us getting together to spend a month and a half in a studio, which is what we would have done back in the day, that there was, it would have been really hard to, irrespective of the distance, just to get that kind of time all at the same time. Whereas when you're 18 and you've got nothing to lose, it was relatively straightforward to do. But we probably spent at least a month, if not more, actually recording by the time you put all the actual hours in of everyone doing their relevant sections at home. And we built a load of the tracks, and Mark put in a huge amount of time sort of building the demos into sort of versions of songs that we could then all listen to and practice against, and then we could start chopping them up and playing with them. So actually, as Paul said, the technology was sort of really the only thing that enabled us to be able to do it. I think without that, we just wouldn't have had the sort of momentum, I guess, that we would have needed to do.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's always the bass player who ends up putting it all together, I find.
Yeah.
I speak from bitter experience. I mean, so tell us about Myths then, and how it differs from the previous two albums. I know you guys have done I know Mark has done other stuff, but concentrating on Detritus, I mean, how would you say it differs from the first two albums?
For me, it feels like it's a way back in to us becoming a band again. I think because Mark has kept things going certainly on a metal level. I mean, I've done a variety of different things, but like Andy, not metal. I think Mark's definitely had the sort of connection with the industry, if you want to call it that, and therefore has always played with song ideas. I think that's something I've always enjoyed about writing with Mark, is that there's always stuff going on in his head, and you give him a kind of point of focus, and it all kind of comes out. And as I say, he had this sort of 10 years worth of stuff that he just kept that wasn't right for any of the other projects that he was working on. And when we started playing together, he's like, I've got all these things, and literally within like a day, my Dropbox is just full of like half a dozen songs, which are, if you compared them now to some of the stuff that we've recorded, they are quite different. But I think that was a really important thing for me, is that it was allowing almost Mark to kind of exercise some of his demons and sort of get those out in the open, but also that he trusted us enough to be part of that. So I think that, as Andy said, the kind of us connecting as a bunch of mates again, I think was probably really what did it for me. And that, back in the day, that was what was driving us. We were just a bunch of mates without a clue what we were doing, making a lot of noise. So I think that bit for me has always been really important. I think Paul being back in as well, again, back in the day, there was a whole bunch of things going off in our individual lives that meant we didn't sort of stick it out together. And I think that's been really important for me, for us to be able to be back in the sort of original lineup. And I guess in terms of the album and my contribution to it, I guess it's just trying to see a project together as a band again, that it's not an individual working in isolation. It's about a bunch of mates coming together and saying, actually, what if we top that a bit up there? Or what if we repeat that section? Or that bit's not working? Or what was that thing you just did? Try that in this part. And I think that's the thing I've always loved about being part of a band, is it, certainly for us, certainly Detritus as it was then, and definitely as it is now, it is a very diplomatic experience, and particularly for Mark, actually, brought a lot of the initial material. There was no sense of him being overly protective of it. It was like, here you go, guys, this is what I've got, make of it what you will. So I think the relational aspect is very much a central part of what's behind myths. Whether that kind of comes across in the way that people interpret it, to be honest, I'm really not that bothered. I think Andy said something a while back about he's just really keen to see how people react to it, and whether that's positive or not. We've always got this thing called Detritus, and whether that's 5 people or 50,000 people, it's sort of, that doesn't matter anymore. Whereas 28 years ago, I was definitely like, this is the thing I want to do, and I want to make a name for myself. I sort of don't have that now, which is actually incredibly freeing. So I think there's aspects of myths that are just about rekindling friendship and being honest about where you're at, and throwing lots of questions out there that you don't necessarily have the answers to, which I think, compared to Detritus back in the day, I think we were probably more focused in some of the things that we wanted to say. I think that hopefully the wisdom of years has enabled us to be a bit more sort of open, I guess, to different interpretations and different views of the world. So that's me. There's lots of other people in the band, guys.
I think in the days of recording the first album, there was like real set parameters. So we were trying to, we were learning our craft, I suppose, and we were trying to emulate Metallica and Megadeth and Anthrax and all these other bands. We were trying to sound like them, and there were kind of sort of rules of what you could do, and what they, as our kind of the people who'd gone before us, had opened doors where you could do a bit of twinkly guitar if you wanted, and something a bit ballady, but you need to do things in certain ways. And I think, and if but for one, we've probably started finding our own personality a little bit, but we were only just getting there, and we kind of split up before it even came out, so we didn't get to develop it. And I think we probably just got a bit braver. Like Andy's saying, we kind of not trying to do anything to impress anyone other than just being honest, and hopefully people will enjoy that. And so, yeah, if people are surprised by any of the music on there, you should see the stuff they wouldn't let me bring to you.
Yeah, I guess going from my experience as well. Yeah, you feel you haven't got anything to prove anymore. You just do something you want to do.
Yeah,
and it feels right. Yeah.
I think as a band as well, we've always, ever since we got together, even Perpetual Defiance was. I wonder, actually, thinking back, how long it was before we had all those tracks together to record that album. I bet it wasn't that long, because every time we got together to practice, we'd go over stuff that we'd done, but straight away almost we're into, right, let's try and do something new. And that's always been the way of the band, and that's why I think there's such a big difference between Perpetual Defiance, or there's a significant difference between Perpetual Defiance and If But For One, because if you listen to those two albums next to each other, there's so much more diversity in If But For One, I think, and change and different ideas going on. But that's always what we've done. So even when we got back together before we recorded Myths, we had 1 or 2 rehearsals where we went over the old stuff, and that was fine. But straight into straight into writing and creating new stuff, as it always was. And I think that's what we'll always be like.
Yeah, okay. As I say, I've heard the album a few times. I've been getting a few spins on if you can spin a digital album. So yeah, my impressions were it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting more of a straight up thrash album, and I found it a lot more progressive, not in a Dream Theater way, but in a kind of all the influences, all the kind of melting pot of ideas, and lots of really different melodic sections and stuff. And it's not a straight thrash album at all, is it?
No.
And I suppose that in terms of your earlier question about how have things changed from then to now, I think when we were 18, 19 years old and playing the music that we were playing, in terms of metal, thrash was kind of you sort of had regular progressive rock, and then sort of rock, and then heavy metal, and then hard, and then it sort of got to thrash, and maybe sort of death metal was beginning to kind of make a name for itself. But there were only like half a dozen categories, whereas now it's like need an encyclopedia to know which category you're in. And I think that initially was massively overwhelming for me, but actually incredibly freeing. It's like, do you know what? I'm past trying to fit into a category.
I think that comes with age as well, doesn't it? You think,
and I think in a good way. I think that I remember saying that first practice when it was Andy, Mark, and myself. I think I think we all sort of commented, can we still do this, and can I still play it? And I haven't been playing this sort of stuff for a while, but Andy said something along the lines of, but we're still, we never stopped being musicians. We were always still playing in other projects with other things. And actually, whilst on a technical level, my fingers probably weren't moving as fast as they were 28 years ago. Over time, that kind of comes back, but actually it ceased to become an issue anymore. It wasn't about how fast I could play or, whatever. It was about the kind of musicality of it and how that was contributing to the song ideas. Yeah. So I think the sort of plethora of metal categories nowadays has also become something for me, and I think for us really freeing as well, is that actually you can become more yourself without having to worry about which genre the kind of industry chooses to put you in.
Yeah. As I say, I've been looking at your press release. I mean, one of the influences you've got on there is Sabotage, which is quite an interesting one for me. I'm a big Sabotage fan, and I just wonder where that came from, because the song that reminded me of Sabotage was "Call Me Human." I mean, that sounds to me like it could have come off Dead Winter Dead, something like that. Was that the song that made you think of Sabotage, or am I completely barking at the wrong tree?
Although I think it was a PR company.
It's them, not you.
Actually reacting to the sounds we were making. Whereas I've never heard Sabotage, and I wrote it. So
just a lucky coincidence.
Yeah,
well, it really did. Whoever's your PR company are pretty good. They're Paul and Chris. They seem pretty good. Then that's pretty cool.
I've seen them live though, so I have heard them. So.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. So tell me about the writing process and recording. I mean, you obviously you've got sort of geographical issues about actually getting together, recording, rehearsing every week. So was it literally an MP3 project, chuck stuff around in your own home studios? Or how did it work?
It wasn't quite how it was meant to be. There's this little thing called COVID that cropped up. So we'd been practicing up, ready to go in. We were going to lay the drums down. Then we were going to come away and then kind of at home or in various places start layering up on top of the drums. And then, so in a kind of traditional way, just not in the studio. But the guys were going to come up, stay with me because I was fairly near the studio. And literally the night before they were due to come up, my wife developed a persistent cough. So it was kind of, I won't better make it, guys. You won't better stay here. You want to go in and carry on then? And the people were like, no, I think maybe times are looking a bit dicey at the moment. And before we knew it, full lockdown was there. So both our studio sessions got cancelled. But it seemed like madness to not try and actually record it. So because we had templates, as it were, with really badly programmed drums by me on them, we were able to start recording. So we kind of did it all back the front. So in some places we had like strings were there before the guitars were and stuff like that. So it was all completely the wrong way around to the way we would usually do it.
Yeah, and the other weird thing that was going on around that, because I remember it in kind of 3 stages, that we got together in Bristol, I don't know, 5 or 6 times altogether, something like that, in the beginning. And of course, Michael joined us as well, which was fantastic. And we all practiced together then, and then what Mark's just described happened. But what was good actually was that for me, learning the drums and getting back up to speed with the drums as well, was that we did have those, Mark had provided, the MP3 tracks. And so actually before we laid the drums down, which happened first in the studio, Paul and I had just been, me and Paul, practicing down the Thunderbolt in Bristol, which you mentioned, which was under lockdown, which was shut, but because I'm good mates with Dave, who owns it, we said, look, can we use it as a space just for us two to get together? So we got, Paul and I, certainly I benefited from that, because
it was great. We had a good 3 or 4 rehearsals, didn't we?
So that was good. And it was also good for me because, like I say, again, back in the day, and I hadn't done any proper recording for years, so getting used to playing to a click and a pre-recorded track and all that sort of thing for drums, that was invaluable, because before that it was just plug in, play and record, which was great. And But yeah, so that benefited it until I got into the studio, and then obviously I put the drums down, and then the other guys came in and their files were already loaded for the guitars that they'd recorded to reamp and record that way, and then everything else on top of that. So it was a back to front weird kind of experience, but it kind of worked in the end.
Yeah,
and I think what I liked about it as well is that there's obviously a danger. Collectively we've done enough recording in and around this to know that modern recording technology, you can literally get everything spot on. Everything's kind of quantized in and synced in, and it's just meticulous. And there's a danger sometimes that the music kind of loses a little bit of its soul. So I think all of us were a little bit nervous of, hang on, this digital world is kind of taking over. I was freaking out because I'm so used to just playing guitar loud in front of, stood in front of the amp with a mic in front of it, and you're responding to the feedback and all that sort of stuff. And there's me physically in this room recording on my guitars with a set of headphones on and no amp. And it's like, this is just weird. But actually the inconsistency of the process meant that actually there were so many variables up in the air. It literally wasn't until Greg was kind of mixing it all and pulling it all back together again that we actually kind of heard it come to life. Yeah. And because that there were things to do with the patterns that Andy played on the drums that weren't in the original drums tracks that Mark had kind of done. There were not that there's many solos in there, but a couple of the solos that were literally finished like the night before, so the guys hadn't even heard them by the time I sent the files up. And so that the sort of unpredictability that you would normally get in a studio environment kind of happened by accident. So although it is actually really tight from a sort of rhythmic point of view, actually there's a sort of softness and a sort of humanity to it because it wasn't done in the traditional way, which I kind of really like. So it kind of sounds like us. It doesn't sound like us 28 years later, where everything's kind of super organized and super tight. It's tight musically, but there's a looseness to it that I think sometimes you can lose that. So kind of by accident, I guess, because we're not smart enough to design that, but the sort of circumstances allowed that to happen. And I think the diversity of the work, I think, really, really shows, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it does. It does, definitely. I mean, I can hear, obviously, you mentioned strings. I can hear synths and piano, and there's some drum loops and stuff. There's tracks like, is it Elyrean? I mean, who's in charge of doing all that? But I don't see a keyboard player there. So who does all that? Is that Mark?
Mr. Broomhead.
Come back.
Yeah, yeah, that's me mucking about. Probably they shouldn't leave me on a room on my own with technology around me for very long.
Do you lock them out the studio and then put all the bits in that you want?
Yeah. Exactly.
Even worse, you do them at home before we get there.
Sorry?
It's even worse, you do them at home before we get there.
Yeah, totally.
So how are you going to do that live? Is that Andy triggering it from the drum kit or something like that? Have you thought about that yet? Or just not going to play those tracks?
That would blow my mind. That's a new experience for me trying to do all of that. We'd have to reherse that for sure.
So you'd have to play to a click and then trigger stuff, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's the way forward. Because I mean, we rehearsed basically playing along before to a click with with all the stuff going off anyway. So it's all there. I've got all the stems. We'll just stick something together and.
It sounded pretty good when we were rehearsing. To be fair, so
yeah,
doing it live, I'd be quite confident it would sound good.
I mean, some of it's just embellishment, but some of it is key to songs, in which case we'll have to make sure it's there and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah. Not that anyone's playing gigs anymore, but
no, exactly.
No. Okay, fine. Okay, so just going through my notes here, really. So the new single "Bright Black" was released earlier in the year. Was that middle of a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, something like that?
A week ago. Yeah.
About a week ago. Yeah. I mean, what is that? Just remind me. Is that the first single? I mean, what's the response been like?
Yeah, it's the first one. We decided to stick one out a month before the album release, just to kind of tease people a bit. And yeah, seems to be getting some good attention.
Okay.
It's not one of the most challenging songs on the album for the listener, so we thought that was like.
It's difficult. Yeah, when you've got such a varied album, it must be difficult to pick the single.
It was. I think it was difficult to pick which one, but I think we thought Bright Black was a real sort of heavy driving track that we certainly all thought was probably the right one for people to hear first. And if you've been following Detritus over the years, it would be fairly easy to connect to that song and sort of hear us again. and get an idea of where we're coming from. I think if some of the other songs on the track, which are different, I think if we'd stuck one of those out as a single, it might have been hard to engage with more. But I think that's the thing with this album is that you've got to listen to the whole thing and experience all the different tracks on it, and I think that's the beauty of the album, that it should have a wider appeal, but still have enough in it for those traditional thrash metal fans. But yeah, it's definitely not a one single album. It's not got one or two tracks and then the rest are kind of okay. For me, I absolutely chuffed with all the songs on there because they're different. I think they all have a different impact. And I think it's one of those albums I think you need to listen to a few times and you'll start to love it, and you'll start to hear it more and enjoy it. I'm really excited about it, to be honest, coming out.
Cool.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I think, as you get a bit older and you're doing music because you enjoy it, I think that's the important bit, isn't it? You're not rushing it through and trying to prove something. You're doing it because you enjoy it and you want to do something you're happy with, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a bit braver with the second single. So we got the single coming out the week before the release, and that's Bloodstained Glass, which is probably one of the most kind of off-piece ones for us. So we thought, let's just put it out there, see what happens.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, exactly.
You've got nothing. You've got nothing to lose. Have you got any tours or gigs or anything lined up potentially in the future? Nothing at all, no.
Nothing at the moment.
A bit like every other band out there. Then.
Well, that's the sad thing about it at the moment, is because we enjoy playing more than anything else, and we've just not been able to do that at the moment. I think that was one of the most exciting things about getting back together, is that we can go and do some metal gigs again. That would be wicked, but it's just not happened. No. It will, but we've just got to, we've just got to be patient. But yeah, that's if there is a downside, it's definitely that we're not playing together.
Mm. I mean, we hope to get together this month just to do a video to come out with Bright Black or with Bloodstained, but we can't even do that now, so.
No, it's criminal. It's really frustrating, isn't it? I know how you feel.
Yeah.
It's but on the flip side, though, there seems to be a lot of material coming out at the moment from all over the place.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of gigs when we can get back on the road.
I was going to say, the venues. Yeah, if there are any venues left, they'll all be busy.
Every night, I think.
What's happened with the Thunderbox? I heard that they were in trouble.
Well, I went for a walk with Dave last week. Me and Dave and the dog down the river, and he's hanging on in there. Basically, he's waiting until they can open again. But he's very clear. It's been difficult for him to think about opening in any other way than a local music venue. He's done his crowd his fundraiser. He did. I don't know if you saw. He did a track with some of the other owners of live venues in Bristol, which was went out there to help do the crowd fundraiser. So he's been doing bits and pieces to keep himself going, but yeah, it's tough going.
Yeah, I think because there isn't an end date, you can't plan for anything, can you? And it keeps just rolling on and on, doesn't it? Which is a real shame. Yeah. I mean, is there anything else that you guys wanted to sort of get off your chests or promote the band or say anything else that's important to yourselves? Everyone's smiling now. Oh, yeah.
For me, I've come from a slightly different background. I normally listen to death and black and extreme metal that way. So to do this album is something different for me, but it's a lot of fun. So be open-minded. Listen to as Andy's been saying quite eloquently, every song's got its own kind of feel and flavour. It's complete on its own, but you need to listen to all of them to kind of see where Detritus is now. And it's exciting, and it's heavy as well. So get your head banging, get your foot tapping, and enjoy it.
Yeah, like I say, I've listened to it quite a few times, and it wasn't what I was expecting, but I really like it. It's got lots of different elements in it, and I say my background is the sort of gothic metal sort of stuff, and there's bits of that in there, bits of Sabotage, even if you don't know them or like them. So one last question then. Obviously, the sort of faith side of the band is important to you guys, and I understand that. But I mean, do you see that as a barrier to success, or do you think it opens up different avenues to you?
Don't know, really.
Or should I edit that out?
Well, I think it's if you look at most of the sort of social media traffic and conversations we get, it will be from people who are it'd be either from other radio stations or fans or others who are obviously Christians or got some sort of faith background, and we're all in different places as a band in terms of that. And we talk about that a little bit. We don't talk about it a huge amount because for us it's about the music and it's about doing something positive and it's about saying something positive, and that's the key thing for us. So I think back in the day, Perpetual Defiance, we were all in a slightly different place then. It was all quite fundamental, maybe not even intentionally, but it was. And if But for One has progressed that a little bit more, and then 25 years later we're all in a slightly different place again. I'd like to think that the album will appeal to people who like metal and who like our music, and I'd really that would be my only anxiety, is that we're still framed completely in the place that we were before, maybe as a Christian thrash metal band. I personally always wanted to be a thrash metal band, and if there's Christians in it, fine, and if there's people who aren't Christians in it, that's fine. The main thing is we all get along, we've all got something good to say, and we enjoy it. So I hope this album does provide probably the best opportunity to widen our audience and people enjoy what we're creating.
I think people are a lot more broader, not only like in what they'll listen to musically and whether they agree with it, or they don't, and stuff like that. So I think it's a different place now. I think when we were first doing stuff, you were definitely in a category and you had to wear the right T-shirt and do everything. You had to be within that tiny bit, and you wouldn't even like a slightly different genre of metal or anything like that. And anyone who disagreed with you wouldn't listen to it. Where I just think people are quite open to listen to stuff. And so hopefully whatever barriers are there are very small, because hopefully it's just honest and open and people enjoy that about it.
Yeah. As I say, I mean, do you think in the early days it helped you to get attention and stuff? And do you think it made any difference? I'm just generally curious, it does differentiate you guys a little bit,
I don't think it made much difference in the UK, but I think it made us sell lots of records in America, which was useful.
No.
We were 18 years old. We'd been playing together for 2 years. I think, for most of us, it was the summer of our A-levels had just finished. We'd applied to play at a number of festivals and sort of bigger gigs that were definitely kind of punching above our weight, but we felt up for it. And then on the back of one of those, we get this little independent UK label saying, we want to sign you. So there we are, 18, about to go on holiday with all our mates to France, and we get this offer of a record deal, and we're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Happened to be with a Christian company, and I think that's what kind of took that trajectory. I think in our minds, it's like, we got a record deal, and who that was with and what that meant, we didn't have a clue. I can remember being on a service station on the M5 trying to get the fax, one of those portable fax machines that you put in different P's to try and get it to work, to fax the contract back to the label before we were due to go on holiday the next day. I mean, that's how, purely by chance, we happened to get a small deal, which happened to go up to Music for Nations for the distribution. And I think that pushed us up and sort of elevated us in a way that we weren't expecting. And as Mark said, I think that it was almost by chance that the US side of things, which obviously has a slightly more specific kind of set of categories. I think for me, I was really interested to see how the kind of faith side of it would work this time around, kind of knowing that we've all moved on in terms of how we see the world, what our individual faith might be. And I think back in the day, there was very much a sense of us all kind of, as Mark said, sort of towing the line, agreeing to certain things. This time around, it's actually, we've kind of been great about it for me, is that we've all kind of got on as mates, irrespective of our individual beliefs. And actually, it's the points of overlap of where we agree on stuff. Actually, fundamentally, it is about getting on with people, whether they believe the same as you or not. Yeah. Actually, we're all human beings, and we all to better a world that we can all live in and share our diversity. And I think that's, if there's an underlying set of themes sort of beneath the surface in some of the lyrics initially feel like they can be sort of dealing with very specific issues, but actually underneath it is this underlying sense of actually we all just need to get along. We all need to find the points of familiarity and similarity. And you know, a lot of the lyrics end with that kind of message of hope, and I think that was the one thing we could all agree on, that actually at the end of the day we've got to try and put a message that we all believe is true, irrespective of how we articulate that. And that's, you know, I think that's one of the things, certainly for me, but I think as a band we're actually really proud that we've got that to happen. And as I said right at the beginning, you know, relationally, the fact that we're all back together in the same room making some noise as we're all hurtling towards 50 years old, it's like, that's got to be a good thing, surely.
It sounds like you've all grown up.
In a good way.
Brilliant. Oh, brilliant. Okay, fine. That's pretty much it. Was there anything else you wanted to promote or anything? Or, I mean, not other things apart from Detritus, but, you know, you've got a car repair business or something. Okay, fine. I mean, I think that's all the questions I had, really. So...
in terms of plugs and things, with, you know, obviously the new album's coming out mid-February, but all the first, if people haven't heard some of the old material and want to kind of see where we've come from, and as Andy said, the difference between the first album and the second album, which hopefully leads you into what's going to happen with this one, that's all that stuff's now, like, we finally caught up to date, and we're all on streaming channels, so it's on Apple Music and it's on Spotify and so on, and that's all just, you can just access that whenever you want. So folk can kind of give us a whirl first, and then I think that seeing the progression on to the new album will make an awful lot more sense. Yeah, sure. Okay. But that's basically it, really.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, John.
You're done. All right.
Thanks,
I'll say that. Brilliant. All right. That's my first interview for UK Thrashers. All done. Brilliant.
Congratulations.
Excellent.
Cheers, John. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, John.
Okay, that was Detritus. This is Detritus and their brand new single from their upcoming album Myths. This is Bright Black.
Just unquestioned answers. My silence
Okay, from a Canadian band whose album In Sanatorium we really enjoyed last year, this is Hyperia and this is Evil Insanity. Next up, our final track from the week. From Manchester, this is Beyond Salvation and Omen. Okay, that's the end of this episode. Thank you to Detritus for joining us in the studio. Thanks to Jon for breaking his cherry with his first interview. Expect to hear lots more from him in the coming months. As always, thank you to all the bands who contribute and let us use their music. And thanks to you guys for listening. See you next week.